CNBC TV18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.
Thank you, Deepak. I'm really delighted on this occasion when we are celebrating the Millennium Makers of India. And on my side, I must say, if there's one person I've always looked up to in terms of building India and building the financial sector of India, it is you. And before we get into the more current subject, I would like to ask you about a little bit of your personal history and how HDFC evolved over the last 35, 40 years. And it's one of the most amazing stories of making of India, including the fact that I believe before HDFC you were working in another foreign bank before that. So the whole quick, for the purpose of benefit of history of Deepak Parekh.
I think this is our 37th year in operation. We started in 1977, and that time no one had ventured, no one had endeavored to do retail loans. There was no long-term finance available. There was no foreclosure laws. And at that stage, it was ICICI who thought that this is a good business to get into retail. Retail lending was unheard of in India. And that's the time when I was in Chase Manhattan, I was running the Chase office here, and they transferred me to Saudi Arabia, which is an oil-rich country where you get 2 months annual leave. The attraction was 2 months annual leave. Because the Americans did not want to go to Saudi Arabia those days. I'm talking of 37 years ago, the first oil boom. And so I had a choice between going to Saudi Arabia or join this new institution. So I'm glad I decided not to go to Saudi Arabia. That's when I left Chase and joined this. See, there was a need for housing finance because people don't have large money to put in a house. Housing is the largest investment a family makes in his or her lifetime. And you need institutional support, you need banking support for them to pay over a period of time. Why pay rent every month and not EMI and own the own house? So this concept was there. It has worked all over the world, but not in India. Now the main reason it did not work in India, why did, suppose Kotak Bank was there that time, why did State Bank did not do housing loans at that stage, or any nationalized bank or any foreign bank? Because there was only fixed rate lending. There was no concept in India of a variable rate loans, floating rate loans. A bank would not be able to give a 15-year fixed rate loan. So we had to borrow long-term money in those days and give fixed rate loans. The floating rate came only in the end of 1990s, when that's the time when the variable rate interest phenomenon, and that was the time when the banks got into housing finance. So there were reasons why banks were excluded or banks did not pursue this. Now today they are pursuing it very, very, very actively. And if you see foreign institutions, if you see US banks or European banks, mortgage finance is a very big chunk in the total lending portfolio. In fact, the outstanding mortgages are more than industrial lending. So it's a big part of a bank portfolio. It was not in India, and now you will see in India over the years that mortgage will become a very, very important item in a bank's balance sheet. If you just look at housing as a percentage of GDP, is a good number to look at. It's 9% in India. It's still single digit. It is 18% in China. It is 25% in Thailand. It is 35% in Malaysia, and 80s and 90s in US and UK and Denmark and all that. So we have a long, long way to go. From 9, we can easily get to 20 in 10 years' time. When we started 37 years ago, it was 2% of GDP. So in 37 years, it's moved from 2 to 9. So look at the scope in this business. The scope is enormous.
If you just look at, as I'm moving from the history of HDFC to the history, in a way, the development of India. In this period, 77 to 2015, we have seen enormous change in the political and economic landscape of India. And you have been a part of that journey. You've dealt with a number of governments. You have been very bold and forthright in expressing your views across governments. As you look at this evolution of Indian polity and economy, sitting where you are, how do you sort of, number one, look at history and judge it in the context of where we go from here on a political economic basis, the broad Indian story, because there are many, many people here who would love to get your view and relate the past into the future.
I'll just say a few words on the earlier question, that in any financial sector, conservatism has to be the hallmark of an organization. And you cannot be over-aggressive in a financial sector company.
Right.
And many people have burned themselves when they've been very aggressive. So apart from having a customer-centric, ethical culture, it comes from the top. From the top, one has to be aware what is happening in the organization, and one must have a clean record.
Right.
And otherwise you get into trouble in this business. On your question, I think the best days in India are yet to come, and I'm convinced. Unfortunately, I may not be alive to see some of the better days that come, but at least I'm happy to think that they are going to come, and I'm convinced they will come. I think we have a strong government. We have a leader who leads from the front. They have the right intent of on number of issues of ease of doing business, of setting up manufacturing, of creating jobs, single window clearance. I can go on and on. And even in our state in Maharashtra, I was very enthused to read what our Chief Minister wants to do in this city and in the state. I think this city, the commercial capital, is the most neglected city in the country. And it gives the maximum revenue to the center. And yet people have not invested. The government has not invested. I think this Chief Minister is a breath of fresh air. He comes with no baggage, and I'm sure he will do wonders in the next 5 years. So I'm hopeful that India will do much better. I'm not saying we'll get to 10% next year. It's a slow climb. You cannot expect in a large country like ours, in a poor country like ours, to see GDP growth rates going 2%, 3%. It's a 1% a year climb. I think in 5 years we can get to 8, 9, 9%. So we cannot expect to jump. But I think slow and steady wins the race. And I think government means business. The Prime Minister is very keen, and he's very straightforward, and he's business-minded. And you know the number of hours he works, and he's really revolutionized the ministries, the bureaucrats. You go to Delhi, you can get appointments at 9 a.m. now. You don't have to wait till 11. So, you know, things are different in Delhi, and people are working, and it's good for India. I think it's very good. That's why I'm very optimistic. You know, in a country like ours, we may not be able to see the progress on the ground level immediately. And I've heard people complaining that nothing has changed. Auto sales have not increased. FMCG sales have not increased. It takes time. And I think the finance minister keeps saying that I want to put more money in the consumer's pockets. I want more savings. You know, we could not have had a better time now when all commodity prices are all-time low. Oil, which is our biggest weakness, is 50% lower. We will save in a full year more than $50 billion on import of oil if it remains at today's level. It's a huge plus for India. Coal, we have large coal reserves, but we are one of the largest importers of coal. Coal prices have come down 45%. All this helps India. And we should, you know, with right policies, good governance, and with international pricing, commodity pricing helping us, I think there's no place better than India today to invest. I'm convinced about it.
One of the things that you alluded to is the perception that the new government's vision and talk has been excellent. More needs to be seen on the walk. And in that context, the fact that there is vision, there's a strong project management approach, the whole strategic architectural piece, do you think the government has enough muscle and brain power to really get the strategic architecture piece, the piece in the middle between Modi's vision and strong project management?
See, the growth happens in the states, not in the center. So center can lay down policies, center can push the states to do things. The growth, the development, the progress has to happen in the states. So you will see that states, well-run states with dynamic chief ministers will do much better than other states. And there is little influence what the center can do to the states other than push them and keep pushing them. So I would say that the BJP government has definitely a much larger clout on the BJP states. And you will see the BJP states doing well because they will be directed from the center if they don't follow the policies of the government, whether it's single window or e-tendering or for all government contracts. They are talking of e-tendering. Maharashtra government, the chief minister said anything the government orders over 3 lakhs of rupees is going to be on e-tender basis. 3 lakhs of rupees on e-tender. So it's totally transparent process. I think this is the best news I've seen, I've heard. And from April 1, he says we will institute this in Maharashtra. So I guess the states have to implement the policies, and the Prime Minister or the center is very little they can do. Fine, some of the ministers in the center maybe are first-time ministers, and so they'll take time to come to grips. So we have to give them time. I think 6-7 months in a 5 years' time is too short a time. So I feel that we should give 6 more months, and you will see distinct changes on the ground level. And the economic policy that we will see later on here this month, and the railway budget and the finance minister's budget will be the key documents that will see India's progress over the next few years. The direction, the emphasis on number of issues, how to have not a hostile tax department, how to have a simple tax laws, how not to scare foreign companies with taxation demands. You will see a lot of things in this budget, and I'm looking forward. I've never looked forward for a budget as much as this time.
CNBC TV 18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.